Welcome to So Booking Cool, it's Jewel B. In this two-part interview, today's guest is the author of the critically acclaimed and debut middle grade novel, A Good Kind of Trouble. She is Lisa Moore Ramée. Stay tuned.
Hi, this is Lisa Moore Ramée, and my book, A Good Kind of Trouble, is available right now, and you're listening to So Booking Cool.
I love your name.
Thank you. I have had to give the nod out to my dad and put that maiden name in there so, it wouldn't be forgotten.
It's really unique and definitely memorable. So A Good Kind of Trouble, I noticed that it already has and it's continuing to resonate with both children and adults. So was this a goal that you had in mind when you were writing the book?
It really wasn't, I have to say. And in fact, it wasn't until I started talking to some agents who were interested in representing me in the book that, and they were telling me what they had gotten out of it, that I thought, oh, okay, all right. This is an unexpected bonus that there's some people out there who are understanding some concepts that had been unclear to them before.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of agents, Lisa, what is it like from the perspective of an author to meet with agents and decide the one that you think is the best fit?
It's horrible. It is horrible. It's something that you think before it happens it is going to be fantastic, and you hear, I was in a contest, Pitch Wars, and so that creates a community of people that you can kind of check in and see what other people are doing, and people would comment about the fact that they were going, they had several agent offers and had to decide, and you think, oh man, that's what I want, and then it happens to you. And don't get me wrong, it is a blessing and fabulous, and I felt incredibly lucky, but the problem with it is that there are these wonderful agents out there that any one of them would do, fabulous by you, and somehow you have to decide who to go with. And it sounds maybe awful to complain about something that's so wonderful, but I knew that I couldn't make a wrong choice, but at the same time, I really wanted to make the choice that made the most sense for me. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know, you don't know exactly how to do that because they all say fantastic, wonderful things. And it was, in my particular case, I had talked to several people, and I felt I was going to make a certain choice, and then the day that was my deadline day to decide, I got a call from Brenda Bowen, who we had an instant connection, and I was like, yep, this is it. I didn't know what exactly I needed to hear, but it was just this great connection.
Wow. Yeah. I love hearing about that because I don't think I've ever gotten to hear the author talk about that, the agenting experience. So thank you for that.
Yeah, it's wild. It's like people have these long lists of here's all the questions to ask and all of that, which is so helpful. But then you start asking those questions and you realize, well, of course everyone has great answers to these questions. If they're, an agent that knows their stuff, of course they do. So then it just comes down to a vibe thing, and how do you explain that?
And you said Linda? Was it Glenda?
Brenda.
Brenda.
With the, yes. Mm-hmm.
So after you and Brenda connected and you knew that she was the right fit, how long after your meeting did you guys start looking for publishers?
My case was really unusual because this is not how it typically happens. But it was really fast because my my deadline date for hearing from agents if they were interested was something like May 12th or May 16th, something like that. And when I talked to Brenda and, we decided it was a good fit, she said, look, New York closes down, publishing basically closes down in the summertime. So she's like, Memorial Day is coming. I want to get this book into some editors' hands before Memorial Day. So she did a really fast read and had a couple of quick little adjustments that she asked me to make, and then sent it out, in probably a week after I had signed with her. And then it sold it, a week after that. Mm-hmm. So it was really fast. But she knew, and it was one of the reasons I think, I liked Brenda, was because she was like, you know what? We don't have time to spend, a couple of months revising and getting this perfect. It's good to go. Let's go. And she was right.
And that publisher is Balzer Bray.
Yeah, that publisher is Balzer Bray, and it's, so sweet. I still have on my phone the text message that Brenda sent to me that Alessandra Balzer sent to her saying, I just started reading it. I'm liking it. Let me know if, you hear from other people. It was like, oh wow, this is real. This is something that might happen. And, I'm an older author, so, I'm not one of these children debut authors. So, I was in the trenches for a long time. I was not expecting any type of quick sale like that. So that was amazing.
Yeah, of course. And this is the publisher they do like great titles too, in my opinion. Like,
yeah.
What did
I have so much respect for that. It's so, it's one of those things, like, you think when you hear no's for as many years as I did, it gets it feels like somebody else has taken over your life when you hear a yes, not only from anybody, but from someone like that, who has been doing some incredible work. I just had so much respect for them. And I was really, after The Hate You Give came out, I had a odd connection with that book because that book was everywhere and I was still working on my book, and I wouldn't let myself read it because I thought, there's some clear connections between my book and Angie's, and I don't want to even unknowingly start having some of that seep into mine. So then it was really like this fun thing when Alessandra sent me some of the books that Balzer Bray puts out, and that was one of the books, of course, that she sent. And I'm like, nope, still can't read it because I'm just putting it off. And that's how I celebrated once my book was like the final edit. I was like, I can finally read Angie's book. So that was really fun.
Did you still find that there were connections? And by the way, a lot of people say that A Good Kind of Trouble is for the middle school audience or just younger audiences who might not be ready to read The Hate You Give just yet. Do you agree with that?
I do. It's not something that I wanted to say, like, because it felt like, oh man, I don't want to. Angie's book is so fantastic, and I didn't want to at all make it seem like I was trying to steal from her glory, and so when other people said that, I was like, that it's so flattering. And I do think that while they're, very different stories, I do think that they, in some ways, accomplish the same goal of making clear some concepts for people. Like within the Black community, these things are already known. And I think one of the fantastic things about The Hate U Give is how widely read that book became.
Mm-hmm.
It was not a book it clearly was not a book that was, somehow just for a Black audience. It was for everybody. And I think it taught people a lot. And my hope with my book was the same thing, that it would be definitely there for young Black girls in particular, but at the same time for non-Black people, that they would be able to find those, similar messages of what is this? What is Black Lives Matter? Why is that important? And why does it mean something other than what I may have assumed?
So do you find, Lisa, that some of the non-Black audiences have been able to understand a bit more about Black Lives Matter and everything after reading A Good Kind of Trouble?
I do. And, that it gives me great satisfaction to say that I do. I've had the pleasure now of hearing from some younger readers who have contacted me to say that they really appreciate, getting that understanding. Because I think it is confusing sometimes, if you hear Black Lives Matter, and if you're non-Black, I can see where the confusion could come from, of going like, okay, this group of people are saying they matter more than us. And it takes, either being in that community or someone kind of sitting you down to say, wait a second. This is what we're really saying. We are saying that we matter too. We matter also. And that was something that I so wanted to get across in the book. And I thought, if I can just do that and have, a few people walk away thinking, oh, okay, I understand what these people are saying now. I understand what this pain point is and how it's been misunderstood. That gives me great satisfaction.
And I also understand that A Good Kind of Trouble mirrored a lot of the experiences that you had in junior high as well as your daughter. Can you tell us more?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it really was the genesis for writing this book, because when I first wanted to write a novel, like before this book, I had written primarily short stories. And this was like my first attempt to write a novel-length piece, and I didn't exactly know what to write about, and thought about a lot of my experiences growing up. And one of the things that I noticed right away as a kid moving from elementary school to junior high was this weird thing. It seemed weird to me that kids were suddenly much more aware of race than they had been in elementary school. And suddenly people were making friendships based on race. And I really noticed that at lunchtime, where there were tables that were just, it's like, well, that's where the, white kids are sitting. That's where the Asian kids are sitting. That's where the Black kids were sitting. That's where the Latinx kids are sitting. And it was very separated. And then when my daughter started junior high, I hadn't really thought too much about that for, a good many years. And she came home and told me that it was the same thing. And it was surprising to me, because when she was in elementary school, one of the things that I thought was really cool was how it seems like no one really seemed to be caught up in race, or at least not thinking of each other that way, as far as like, I can't be your friend because you're something other than me. They all just kind of hung together in a big clump. And then that changed in junior high. And I thought, you know what, this is something that is just a truism, I think, of school. And I want to write about it. When I first started writing about it, the Black Lives Matter movement hadn't even started yet. And so that came later in later revisions. But it was always about looking at that strangeness of what is it that happens? Why does that switch happen in junior high, right around 7th grade? Do people start kind of looking around and going, okay, I want to hang out with my own now?
And how old is your daughter now? She's still in junior high school?
No, she is. I mean, it shows you how long I was working on this book because she is in college now.
Wow. Okay. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. But it's funny because she was my first reader of the book. The book is dedicated to her. She would take the book, she would take my printed out pages of the book, like, to bed with her, like, for, like, to just have, like, a book to read at night. And no one can tell her that Shayla is not based on her, even though I tried to, I'm like, she is not you, honey. That is not, it is fiction. It is not your life. These things didn't even happen to you, but she is sure that I based almost the whole book on her.
Wow. Okay. Because I also wanted to know, Lisa, like, for A Good Kind of Trouble, were there other characters that you had in mind before coming up with Shayla?
Shayla has always been, Shayla's always been Shayla. Shayla's always been this afraid of getting in trouble girl. She used to sound a lot different, and I think part of the reason of why I got a lot of rejection for a lot of years was that I had a hard time for a long time nailing that middle grade younger voice. I thought I had it, but it wasn't. I look at the difference between the book now and what it looked like 10 years ago, and I'm like, yeah, she sounds like she really is in 7th grade now versus before. But she was the same, and her friendships were pretty much the same. The people around her actually changed the most in the kind of development of the story of who she interacted with. Some of the sub-characters are the ones who I had to really spend a lot more time developing. But she just kind of walked into my head fully formed with her trouble-hating self.
Okay. And I know your second character, and correct me please if this is not true anymore, but Bernard is your second favorite character after Shayla?
Yeah, and it's funny because Bernard went through a lot of changes in the writing of this book, and when I first included this character, my idea initially was just to have kind of a boy that truly was a bit of a bully, and how having someone like that be interested in you would be hard to deal with. And it started seeming really problematic, I guess, for lack of a better word, of like, going, wow, I feel like I'm being guilty of some of the things that I'm looking at people in society of being guilty of looking at this kid and making judgments about him, even though it's a kid I created. I was like, I'm being a little bit too quick to judge, but what is his story? What is really going on with him? Is he really a bully? And I wanted to start figuring out who he truly was. And it's one of those things that it makes me smile every time someone tells me that that's their favorite character, because I just love that. I just love who he became in the story, and probably more than anybody else in the book, he's one of the few characters that I can really see in my head. I know exactly how he looks. I know how he sounds, and my heart just always goes out to him, because I'm like, this poor kid, like that's just gets misunderstood by a lot of adults. That's the other thing that I hoped people would walk away from the book of going like, maybe I shouldn't be so quick to judge that kid who's a little bit loud, who I'm maybe intimidated by even because of their size. You're like, maybe there's something else I should be looking at there.
When you write a book, I'm curious to know, as the author, are there specific takeaways that you want people to have, or sometimes you don't really care what it is as long as they were able to take away something? Or
yeah, that's a good question. I have such an odd process. Like, to even use the word process seems overblown, because my writing style is so ridiculous, of just kind of starting from a blank page and just kind of going, okay, let's see what happens. And it's not until I get fairly deep in the story, like things will start happening and I'm like, oh, okay, I see what's going on here. And then I start thinking about some themes and some things that I want a reader to get out of the book. But really that comes so late in the process, because the first thing that I'm always doing is just developing characters. I think it harkens back to me being a kid and having a lot of imaginary friends, and those imaginary people had very involved, developed personalities. And so when I'm writing now, I'm kind of just doing the same thing. I'm just creating more imaginary friends for myself, and then I kind of see what trouble they end up getting into, and figuring out a story and a plot somewhere along the line. And then I'm often surprised, to be honest with you, to then see like, oh wow, like there's actually a message here that I'm creeping up on. And then I spend some time teasing that out a little bit more so that it's a little bit more clear.
How did you like working with the editor?
That was wild. I have a critique partner that I adore. Jen is my, she's my touch point, my writing soulmate. And so I've been, I've had someone look at my work and provide, a lot of editorial insight and help. So that part wasn't strange for me, but the part that was really odd was working within the framework of, we're working on something that other people are truly going to see. Like I knew the whole time that we were doing the edits, like this book is going to be published. And that was a whole different spin on revising and editing. And Alessandra has a very soft touch in a way. I mean, she's direct in of what she wants to see, but she doesn't give very specific direction of how she thinks you might get there. She asks a lot of questions. She makes suggestions, and then it's up to the writer to figure out how to do those things. And I think it was really good for me, because it made me think so much harder about what it is that I do, and to focus a little bit more on making sure I was actually saying things the way that I wanted to. It's been fantastic. I'm working with her now on my second book, and that's great too. It's just like, oh wow, like this is really cool. Like just for someone to give these like gentle little, have you thought about this? What about this? And maybe go, okay, let me spend some time thinking, and not just being so quick to fix something that someone's pointed out as a problem.
Wow. Well, first of all, congratulations on the second book.
Oh, thanks.
You're welcome. I'm so glad because I was going to ask if you are writing another one, so that's awesome to hear. Like when did that decision come about and how do you feel and what can you say anything about the second book yet or no?
Hey, that was part 1 of my conversation with author Lisa Moore Ramée. I hope you enjoyed it and make sure that you check out the second part of this interview, only on Soul Booking Cool.